citizens, they need a place to expand within. So we're already down on the totem pole as far as head count on the police station and certified officers. We need to add to that list, but we also need to make sure they have a decent place to do business in. And the other issue of concern that I have is in looking at salary, the 911 dispatch director of communications is still at a grade 21. It is the only director, other than the library director, under grade 30. You have many positions with the city. This has been harped on for 5 years. Don't make it number 6. It's something that you need to address and look at your grades. There's no reason why somebody in charge of such an important position with all the personnel and the issues of concern with it and working with various counties should still be at grade 21. Thank you.
Thank you. This is again public comment period from 6:30 to 7 o'clock. Have up to 5 minutes to speak on any item on the that's not on the agenda. There are also comment cards here on the back table if you'd prefer to fill one of those out. Also available on Zoom if anybody has like to speak on Zoom.
Not yet. It's crazy. No. Oh, I have to check with Connor. I forgot to. Yeah. And really the way it's set up there.
That's good. Yeah. Yep. So we'll do the vote and then you call them. Okay. Yep. That sounds good. Oh, yes. Yes. Sure. I don't think you need to mention it. Is to speak on any item that's not on the agenda.
How are you doing? Somebody asked me if I don't leave my house. Pretty much want to say the work upstairs. You guys, you're getting my daughter, I rarely see them.
And he went right out. I don't think that's enough. It's 8 years old. Yeah, it's like 8 years old. I have no idea. Not my items.
Keep my mask.
He built his house. so good.
Oh, it's so
I'll take him out of that.
She says, just to get back. She had not felt that. She wanted to get cat. But she had looked like.
Fireplace going.
It's working.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So one thing here, I'll show you real quick. Plans out, so you gotta make sure that this is right. Down that out.
Welcome, everyone. Time is now 7 o'clock. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now call the regular city council meeting of January 26, 2021 to order. Again, time is now 7 o'clock. Opens Meeting Act is posted on the rear wall next to the agendas. This time we'll do roll call.
Please cast your vote for roll call. Councilmember Ganem,
Present.
Councilmember Ganem, are you with us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yes, I'm present.
Councilmember
here.
Gibson, are you with us?
I'm present. Gibson.
Thank you. 8 council members are present, Mayor.
Very good. Moving on to mayor's comments. We'd like to start with the service awards tonight. We do have 3 awards to be given out. First one is to Tina Menking, 5 years of service. She started back in 2016 as a senior office associate for the city clerk's office. So Tina, if you're here, please come up and accept your award. Congratulations, Tina. Next is Gerald Honeywell, 15 years of service. I was hired in 2006 as a power plant mechanic 2 for the power plant. Is Gerald here tonight? No? Gerald, thank you for 15 years. And our third one tonight is Keith Contour, 20 years of service. Hired in 2001 as an assistant wastewater superintendent for the wastewater treatment plant. In August of 2001, he was promoted to wastewater superintendent. Then in 2018, he was promoted to the wastewater superintendent. Keith, thank you for 20 years to the city of Fremont. Tell you, there's a reason we have the best tasting water, right? Thank you, Keith. A couple of other things I just like to mention tonight. We had a very successful council retreat on January 16th. I want to thank council for attending and the valuable comments that you gave. With those comments, as well as what I received over the public, I soon plan to release my priorities to grow Fremont together in my term here over the next 4 years. I plan to give my state of the city in February and plan to bring these priorities to council in the near future. Also, I'd like to get an update, give an update on the comprehensive plan, long range transportation plan, and UDC update. We are in the process of collecting public comment. Again, this is a great opportunity for residents and businesses to communicate their vision for the city and identify what issues are most important to them and in the near future. The planning process is designated to promote community involvement and encourage citizen participation. So we know that the success of our planning effort in this update will depend on engaging our community. So we do have, there's DIY kits as well as an online survey and an interactive map on our website where you can find, where you can make comments on certain areas of the city. And so if you have any questions, please reach out to anybody here in the city. We'll lead you in the right direction, but we're definitely looking for comments in regards to our comprehensive plan. And I encourage the public to give your input and take advantage of these opportunities. Finally, I'd like to give a Three Rivers Health update regarding their vaccination process. To date, they've administered 1,311 COVID-19 vaccines within their Three Rivers Health Department clinics. So at the present time, they're focusing signups on 65 years and older. And for that age group that has not already signed up, there is a website available. If you have any questions, please contact Three Rivers Health Department. I can tell you that they are working extremely hard and doing everything they can to administer as many vaccines as possible. I know that when we last spoke, it wasn't a matter of, it was more of a matter of getting the vaccines in and having them available. And I think that hopefully as we get more vaccines, we'll be getting this out to the public as quickly as we can. So again, I want to thank Three Rivers Health for their hard work. That concludes my comments. We will move on to item 1. Motion to adopt current agenda for the January 26, 2021 regular meeting. Is there any changes to the agenda from council? Councilman Jensen.
I believe that most of the people that are here tonight are here for item number 21.
Item number 21.
To get them along their way.
As long as it's not going to create any issues. I know we have a lot of people here streaming and zooming. If it won't create any technical difficulties, I would like to propose we move item 21 up to after item number 4.
Councilman Sukram.
I second that.
Is that a motion, Mark, then? Okay. So there's been a motion and a second to move 21 ahead of public hearing. Or I'm sorry, behind public hearing. Right before consent agenda. Okay. Cast your votes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Yes for
Councilmember
Ganem.
Gibson,
Yes for Ganem.
Councilmember Gibson, what is your vote?
Yes. Okay, can you hear me?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
And just to be clear, that's right before consent agenda.
Yep,
Correct.
after item 4, before
Thank you.
consent. Yep.
Moving on to public hearings. Item 2, resolution 2021-006 for a class 1 liquor license for Juan Magana doing business as Asteria Kayla LLC, 406 North Main Street. This time we'll have staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. This resolution is to approve a Class I liquor license. Notice of the item was published in the Fremont Tribune on January 14th of this year. A report from the police department and a report from the planning department are included. This location previously had a liquor license. I'd be happy to have any questions that you may have.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any comments from council? Councilman Legman.
Seeing no other comment, I would like to make a motion.
Very good.
I'm going to make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-006.
Councilman Coons.
I'll second that motion.
Cast your votes.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes. Yes.
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Moving to our next public hearing, item 3, Ordinance 5550 to annex property generally located at the southwest corner of West 23rd Street and Business Park Drive at the request of Andrew Stamp on behalf of Fabrication Holdings LLC, doing business as Ella Metal Fabrication. This would be to introduce and hold first reading. At this time, we'll have staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This is a request to annex the east half of Lot 18 Miramar Lakeside Business Center, the west half of Lot 18 Miramar Lakeside Business Center, and tax lot 45. The property is generally located at the southwest corner of West 23rd Street and Business Park Drive, and it's zoned GI General Industrial. We have a couple of conflicting maps about whether or not this is actually in a county industrial area. The county industrial area is an area that was established by state statute, allows these areas to be established. And then if the county board approved and is filed with the Register of Deeds, we need to have the county's permission before we can annex the property into the city. Again, our maps are a little bit conflicting. The applicant did go to the Dodge County Board of Supervisors on December 30th. They voted to approve, provided that Elemental Fabrications was the property owner at the time. Unfortunately, they didn't close until January 7th. So they went back to the County Board of Supervisors. I understand they were at the county board today. The email correspondence that I have seen regarding this, the county has no problem removing this from a industrial area if it is indeed in one. The Planning Commission did recommend to annex it on the condition that it's removed from a county industrial area prior to third reading of the City Council. It's not as clean and straightforward as an annexation normally would be, but it appears that we are in the process of getting all of the ducks in the row to make sure that it can be annexed into the city. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Councilman Yerger.
I just want to be clear on what I heard. You said that this went back to the county board. They don't have a problem with it, but they haven't issued an order on this as of yet. Is that correct?
My understanding is that I don't have the minutes from today's meeting, but my understanding is that they were voting to remove it from the county industrial area.
So they voted today, but we don't have that in record yet.
Correct.
You have emails that indicate that they're passing this through, but we don't have it officially.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing for Ordinance 5550. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any additional comments from council? Councilman Yerger.
In light of the discussion that I just had with the planning director and the planning commission's conditional approval of this item, I would think that it'd be appropriate for our first reading, if we're approving this, to at least recognize the conditional approval of the planning commission as this goes on to second reading if this passed tonight. So I would make a motion to amend first reading resolution to include recognition of the planning commission's conditional use or the conditional requirement.
Councilman Legman.
I will second that.
Cast your votes to amend.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ganem.
Yes.
The motion carries 8-0.
Now I would entertain a motion for the amended ordinance 5550. Councilman Jensen.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to hear first reading of the amended ordinance number 5550.
Councilman Yerger.
I second that motion.
Cast your votes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ganem.
Yes.
The motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Now introduce and have first reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, annexing by voluntary petition property generally described as the east half of Lot 18 Miramar Lakeside Business Center, the west half of Lot 18 Miramar Lakeside Business Center, and tax lot 45 located in Section 16, Township 17 North, Range 8, east of the 6 p.m., Dodge County, Nebraska, and extending the corporate limits to include said real estate, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date on first reading.
Thank you. Moving on to item 4, resolution 2021-007 to approve Gallery 23, Replat 3. At this time, we'll have staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This is a request to replat the townhouse area of Gallery 23. The first ordinance was approved in 2017. In April of 2018, the first amendment to the planned development was approved. That adjusted the types, quantity, and setbacks for the dwelling units. The second amendment to the planned development and a replat of the townhouse area increased the number of housing units in this area, adjusted the lot area width and setbacks in the planned development area to allow for the townhouses, and replat was approved at that time as well. This proposal is just for a replat. It is consistent with the planned development, so it's not a requirement to amend the planned development. What this will do is adjust the townhouse lots so that there can be some ranch style lots along with the 2-story lots instead of just 2-story lots. The applicant indicated that there is a demand for ranch style townhouse units, and that's why this is being brought forward. The change does not significantly alter the grading, drainage, or utilities of the site. The layout in general remains the same. We have received all of the updated easements that were requested by the utility department. And with that, I would be open for any questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions for our planning director? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing for resolution 2021-007. Any comments from the public? Mark Westergaard, you can go ahead on Zoom. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Council. Mark Westergaard with ENA Consulting Group, 10909 Mill Valley Road, representing the owner and developer. Jennifer stated it correctly. The townhome units are selling quite nicely, but the public would like some more ranch style units without the stairs. And so this replat allows them to put those on the exterior 2 units, with the 2-story units being in the middle. And that is the reason for the request. So happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any additional comments from council? Seeing none, I would take a motion in regards to this item. Councilman Yerger.
Since the planning director indicates this is in accordance with UDC, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-007.
Councilman Coons.
I'll second the motion.
Cast your votes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ganem.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Thank you. Now moving on to item 21. Contract with Forever Home for sheltering. Item A, discuss and review proposed contract. At this time, we'll have staff report.
Mayor, City Council, Brian Newton, City Administrator. If you turn to page 291 of the packet, you'll see the staff report. As indicated in the report, in October, council directed staff to solicit an RFP. We did that in November with the deadline of December 15th. We received one bid. We had one party in Omaha call and said they were interested, but they had no shelter facilities in Fremont. I tabulated the bid that we got from Forever Home there in the packet, although it looks like it paginated weird, so it's not real clear. The contract, proposed contract follows. Oh, there it is. So the bid was $227,240 for animal control and sheltering, and $190,312 for sheltering. The contract that follows this is for sheltering only. We posted that on Wednesday, and then on Friday we posted an update to that contract. From what we posted, I'd like to suggest 3 changes be made to the agreement, and this has been approved by Deb Newell and their attorney Quinn Eaton. The first one would be, and we missed this, is under section 21 of the agreement. It says in termination, where it says the city may suspend or terminate this contract for cause or without cause at any time by giving, and it said before, a written notice to Forever should be inserted by giving a 30-day written notice to Forever. That's the first change that was agreed upon by the parties. It just didn't make the last agreement before it got sent out on Friday. The other 2 changes is in Exhibit B. And if you go to, trying to find the page here on Exhibit B. Starts on page 301. In number 2, and this was a suggestion by Councilman Yerger, in number 2, we'd like to insert on the last line of the paragraph where it says excluding, we would insert day of admittance, comma, and then it would be holidays and weekends. So we just insert day of admittance. Also on number 5, on the first line of number 5, right after waiting period, we would insert not including the day of admittance and holidays and weekends. So that would be consistent with paragraph 2. Those are the only 2 changes staff is recommending that we make to the agreement. Other than that, it's been agreed to by Forever Homes and their attorney. So with that, I take any questions.
Any questions for staff? Any comments from council? Councilman Yerger.
I don't really have any comments really at this time, but I would like to introduce the document for the record. I only made one copy. And that's because everyone in the front of the room had copies of this before we came. For members of council, this is the email that you received on Saturday afternoon with additional comments and suggestions relative to the contract that I thought would be pertinent for discussion and consideration at this time. And so I'd like it introduced to the record. And I make that motion.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion to introduce, to accept this. Is there a second, Councilman Ellis? Okay, cast your votes to receive.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson.
Yes.
The motion carries 6-2.
Councilman Yerger, is there any additional comments you want to make on this at this point, or you just want to make sure this is, obviously now it's in the record, so.
I primarily wanted it into the record and I wanted it available for discussion. Unfortunately, because it wasn't submitted in time for packet release, the public doesn't have access to it. But even if I made it as an amendment tonight, they wouldn't have access to it either. So it's not my intention to necessarily go through that document unless other members of council would like to discuss or ask questions about what they saw over the weekend relative to some of these changes. Personally, I felt some of them were important. I would be interested in knowing whether or not the applicant Forever Home is agreeable to the amendments that were shared because they were a recipient of this. And I'd be also interested in knowing if the city was, and if not by either party, which of those amendments to the contract they were not in favor of and why.
Guess that's a good segue. We do have Forever Homes, the applicant here today. Is Deb here? You're available to come up and share a few words with us. That'd be great.
Okay. Hi there. Thanks to not only Brian, but the rest of the city
Name and
council.
address.
I'm sorry, I'm Deb Newell, 1045 North William Avenue. I wanted to thank Brian Newton, some of the other city staff members that worked on discussing our proposal and designing the contract that you guys are or have been reviewing, and as well as your guys' time and consideration of putting out the RFP, and as well as reviewing our proposal over the last few months. If you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer that at this time. Brad, with regard to your question, I read through that and I did not have any objections. I mostly left that to the city attorneys, Adams and Sullivan, and then our attorney to decide if those needed to be put in. And I did not hear back from anyone, so, but I had no problem with the suggestions you had in there.
Thank you. Any Councilman Jensen?
No, I just had comment there that, I mean, we have a contract that was hammered out between our attorneys, your attorneys, the city, you, rather than adding more language and delaying this and costing us any more money, I just sooner move forward the way it is.
Councilman Ligvan?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. First one, are you comfortable with us, the city, doing the animal control right now? At least for now.
I don't have any problem with it. I'm comfortable with it. One of the positives of that is, it kind of leaves a buffer between, let's say, angry public, something like that. There's at least law enforcement documentation. And then there's also the buffer that, if someone comes to claim an animal and is upset about any of the fees or fines, that's something that needs to be discussed with law enforcement, or Brian's working on CSOs, I think they're referred to. My biggest thing, 2021 is going to be a big year of changes and transitions. The talks that I've had with Mayor Spillerberg, Mr. Newton, our group is going to be, we are moving forward in a positive direction. We will amass all sorts of data and we will see what works, what doesn't work, what we need and what we don't need by the end of the year, is kind of how we're going into this year.
Thank you. That was a great answer. Also, are you working on getting a new building also?
We are, right now, I think I have part of an application for a conditional use permit. We're still waiting on a survey for that. That's one of the requirements. Once we get through that hoop and we know that that will be approved, we can go ahead and sign a lease with that property owner and start some renovations in there.
Perfect. One more thing. How long do you think this is all going to take before you get your new property up and running? Just a rough estimate. I know you can't say it's going to be on this date or anything, but a rough estimate.
Right. With what we want to do with that property, it would be 60 days from whenever that permission is granted, if it's able to be granted.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Councilman Yerger?
I've noticed in your original proposal that the compensation that you're receiving obviously has decreased substantially from the original bid. And in large part, that's because of the removal of animal control services portion of what you bid for originally.
Right.
Because that was separated initially as well. And then there was a subsequent reduction. I'm wondering if you can explain the additional reduction. And I'm interested in understanding, since that's about a $37,000 reduction.
Mm-hmm.
If you, or perhaps Chief Elliott will have to answer this, how that $37,000 reduction, if that's for your animal control piece of this, how that correlates with city supplied CSO compensation benefits and the like. You may not have any answer for the latter part. That may be for the chief, but was the $37,000 primarily for just the animal control reductions, or you make reductions for other things?
No, that was the only thing I made a reduction for. So we're going to be open to the public 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday, and 7 to noon on Sundays. Much of the $37,000 reduction was going to be us fulfilling 24/7 animal control, sort of like an on-call basis. And so granted, we're going to have fewer wages if we're not doing animal control 24/7. And so that was my reduction, was the 37, whatever it was. I'm sorry.
That's fine. And in your RFP, the city indicated what you were to bid on relative to the number of animals that you should use in the calculations you might make for compensation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious in knowing what you might have used for a number, because there was a range there. I think it was started out maybe 1,000 to 2,500. It may have been narrowed somewhat in the scope of the RFP when it finally went out. But what number did you use in doing your calculation?
If I remember right, the RFP called for 1,000 to 1,500. And in some line items of my budget, I did use the 1,000 figure. However, there were a couple other line items that I only factored in 750 because it is my strong belief that we will not be intaking 1,000 strays this year. And I felt that it was more appropriate to put in budget line items for 750 animals than it was 1,000 to 1,500. We probably would not be standing here tonight had I given you a proposal for 1,000 to 1,500 animals.
Are you also familiar with a national average cost calculation that appears across the nation that typically for animal control and sheltering, $8 for each resident is sort of a typical rule of thumb? You agree with that's a rough estimate?
Right.
So for Fremont, that's between $200,000 and $225,000 or whatever if you use that calculation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any other questions for Deb?
Does Chief Elliott have an answer to the other part of that question?
Jeff Elliott, excuse me, Jeff Elliott, Chief of Police. Can you repeat the question for me, please?
I was interested in understanding since Forever reduced their contract by about $37,000 for animal control, and we're contemplating 3 CSOs. I'm interested in understanding what 3 CSOs, their loaded cost and equipment and et cetera is in relation to that $37,000 reduction.
Well, it's going to be more than that $36,000 if that's what you're asking, substantially more. I suspect that we're looking in the $100,000 range.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any other comments from council at this time? Very good. We'll move on to item B. Then I would take a motion to move into executive session. Yeah, we'll have time. Sorry. Yes, thank you for all being here. Item C, we have time for on this item for public comment. So we'll come back and we'll have public comment at that time. A plan to have public comment on item C. Councilman Jensen.
Well, that being said, I'll move to go into executive session for the purpose of a strategy session for contract negotiation for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest.
Councilman Legman.
And I will second that.
A motion has been made and seconded to go into executive session for the purpose of the strategy session for contract negotiation and for the reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the pending motion is to go in executive session for the purpose of the strategy session for contract negotiation and for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest. You can cast your votes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ganem.
Yes.
The motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
We'll now go back to the conference room. Thank you.
Okay, Vern, would you mute your system, Vern? Sally's already muted. Vern, would you mute yours and then I'll call you when I get in there on my cell phone. There you go. Thank you, Vern.
It does. If you put too much in there, it will come out if you drop it, what? These things are like $11. I like broke. Yeah. I'm so ridiculously cheap, like. It's awesome. So people. So yeah, you can get these companies for every kind of company. This is the best thing. Have you ever lost your phone? In years. Women don't lose their phone ever. No, exactly. That's right. Yep. Or in our back pocket. We'll take care of it. We got it. I just said someone said they could hear it all.
Vern and Sally, can you hear us? Okay, you're still muted, Vern, so don't forget
Yes,
to.
yes,
Okay,
I
thank
can
you,
hear
Sally.
you.
Vern,
Thank
don't
you,
forget to
okay.
unmute. There you go.
Okay.
Time is now 8:16. I would take a motion to come out of executive session. Councilman Jensen,
I will make the motion to come out of executive session.
Councilman Legban,
And I will second that.
cast your votes.
Councilman Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes,
the motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to C, motion to approve contract with Forever Home for sheltering. This time we'll have staff report.
Mayor, City Council, Brian Newton, City Administrator. I went through the three suggestions that we recommend that you make to it. The first one is include in termination the 30-day notice. The last two are on Exhibit B, where we simply add excluding the first day of admittance. So with those, that'd be in Section 2 and Section 5. So with that, we recommend approval with those three additions.
Any questions for staff? Now we'll take comments from the public. Any comments from the public?
Turn that mic on again, will you, Susan? Just tap that red button up there. The red button up there. John. Or Laura, there you go. Is it green? Just as long as it's green.
Okay, am I on?
Yep.
Susan Jacobus, 1805 North D Street here in Fremont, Nebraska. I would ask that you seriously consider what's in front of you this evening as far as a sheltering contract versus a full animal control contract. In times past, there's been a lot of experience with the animal control side, and wanting to go back and reinvent the wheel isn't necessarily required. The police officers right now have not had a desire to participate in animal control. They do need community service officers, not necessarily to be animal control. You have a $37,000 difference between full animal control and just sheltering. It would behoove you financially to consider that. The cost of 2 community service officers, along with benefits, is going to be just barely south of $150,000 a year. 2 vehicles fully equipped, plus all the additional equipment, something as simple as a snare and traps, etc., will have to be purchased by the city. Regardless of what the future holds for the structure that now exists as Dodge County Humane Society, that's not your concern. That was sold, regardless if the city has first right of refusal or not. That's not our discussion tonight. $37,000 versus well over $300,000 to fully train and staff and employ for animal control, even on a partial basis. Financially, it isn't fiscally sound. The police department, Chief Elliott, in times past has said he wants nothing to do with it. And animal control actually has been getting done very well by the very persons in the very person who bid, Forever Homes, the business that put the bid in front of you. It's a solid bid. They've been doing the animal control. I recently have had 2 additional animals frequent my home, and I took them in and I asked if they had been reported missing. And the reply that I got from both individuals, one an older male and one middle-aged, younger than I, female, and the reply was they were afraid to call and report their animal missing because they were afraid that the call would go to Dodge County Humane Society and they would never see their animal again. And they were afraid that some of the friends of the police would take it to Dodge County Humane Society. So there is still fear with the public. There's a very narrow window of opportunity you have tonight to consider full animal control with Forever Homes. And I ask that you modify this and amend this, and rather than to improve a contract for just sheltering, include full animal control. And if you wish to revisit at the end of a year, if there's any issues of concern, or if the police department actually feels they have the time to send their 2 community service officers that are proposed somewhere for training, then do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, any other comments from council? Seeing none, I would take a motion to approve contract with Forever Homes for sheltering with the additional 3 changes added that was mentioned by staff.
Travis, you want that as amendment?
That would be a motion to amend. Councilman Jensen?
Yes, I will make the motion to amend the contract as recommended by staff.
Councilman Legban?
And I will second that.
Cast your votes.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
the motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Now I would take a motion to the amended contract with Forever Homes for sheltering. Councilman Jensen?
I won't make that motion. I just want to make an announcement here. My daughter has a long-standing relationship with Forever, long-standing and continuing relationship, so I'll be abstaining from this vote.
Councilman Legban?
I will make a motion to approve the amended contract with Forever Home for sheltering.
This motion on the floor. Is there a second? Councilman Coons?
And I'll second that motion.
Cast your votes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
looks like Councilmember Yerger, it did not record your vote. Motion carries 7-0 with 1 abstention, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. All items in the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Are there any items from either staff, council, or the public to be removed from the consent agenda for further discussion? Seeing none, I would take a motion to approve.
Excuse me?
Oh, my apologies.
It's quite all right. I'm not easily seen. I'm short. Susan Jacobus, 1805 North D Street here in Fremont, Nebraska. I would ask to have consideration of number 5, and number 11 removed for discussion.
Items 5 and 11. Thank you, Councilman Yerger.
And I would add items 9 and 13, please.
Okay, there's no other items. I would take a motion to approve consent agenda 6 through 8, 10, 12, 6 through 8, 10, and 12. Councilman Jensen,
Yeah, I'll make that motion to approve consent agenda items 6, 7, 8, 10, and 12.
Councilman Sukram,
I'll second that.
cast your votes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ganem.
Yes.
The motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on, item 5, motion to approve January 13, 2021 through January 26, 2021 claims and authorized checks to be drawn on proper accounts. This time we'll have staff report. I think she is on. I see her, but okay, yeah. We'll move on to the question.
My
Sorry,
question, excuse me, Susan Jacobus, 1805 North D Street here in Fremont, Nebraska. I had a few questions. One was in regards to what's being paid out for spreading biosolids. From what I understand, when those biosolids were discussed, I knew we were going to have a contract to haul it. And I just wondered, what is the income? Because at that point, when there was discussion on adding these waste lagoons, as some of you recall, we were going to sell, and the right of first refusal was given to the person we were purchasing the land from for the wastewater treatment. Are these the biosolids that you're talking about from the wastewater treatment, or where are these biosolids from?
No, I can answer that. No, they're not. These are the current biosolids that we produce from the digesters and from the thickening, from the from the grit anyway that we sell. So it's the same thing. We almost break even doing that, but we haven't done anything with lagoons yet.
So where are the fields located at that this is being hauled to?
So Keith signs those up. They're farmers in the area. We have a contract with a firm, I think Takema or someplace that manages where those farmers go. I mean, he signs them all up. And so it's a contract.
And then the other question that I had was in concern with Weiss Construction. There is $40,469 on the agenda to be paid out under the consent agenda for financials. And the wastewater treatment anaerobic lagoons, misspelled, it should be LA instead of LO, and gas scrubbing systems. From what I understand in past meetings with the utility board, that there was some issue of concern with being behind on the contracts, and that the leak in one of the lagoons had not yet been located, and that they were going to be subject to a fine because they were so far behind on schedule. So my curiosity was that we're paying this out, yet why are we paying out if they're still behind in schedule? And how much more do we have left to pay them? And where are we at?
I'm not sure where we're at, but they have a contract. They're still not finished with the work yet. The scrubbing system is still ongoing. And so the lagoons are done, but the scrubbing system is still being completed. And so per the contract terms, we're paying them for work in progress. We still withhold 10%. So it's an ongoing contract. We're just paying them.
You said the lagoons are done
Yes.
and there's no leaks?
Oh, no, there's still leaks. So that's something we'll have to be working
So that's
on.
something that still has to be addressed. So you had
Mayor?
mentioned in the past, and I did try to go back and listen to that meeting where the utility board discussed those leaks from that you're having concerns with Weiss Construction. You had mentioned that there was another containment system, and that wasn't brought up during that meeting. Can you explain what that containment system is?
Yeah, I'm not
Hey,
sure that
Mayor,
has to do with the paid thing tonight. I think we're
Well,
off
we're
subject.
paying for
Mayor,
this,
City
and the
Administrator
containment
Newton.
system does exist, correct?
It does, as I mentioned at the last council meeting. Yes,
But the lagoons are complete with the exception of there's leaks.
that's correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments regarding this item? Take a motion to approve this item. Councilman Ligban,
Make a motion to approve January 13th, 2021 through January 26th, 2021 claims.
Gibson, I'll second it.
Councilman Jensen,
I'll second that.
cast your votes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ganem,
yes,
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Moving on to item 9, resolution 2021-009 to approve amendment to the Motorola SUS-SUA agreement for console support service through 2026. This time we'll have staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Shelley Holzerlin, 911 Director. In 2017, we signed an 8-year agreement with Motorola for support for system upgrades and security upgrade services. We also had a separate support contract for the break fix portion of the console equipment that's in the dispatch center. That support ended in December of 2020. Rather than leapfrog another large contract over this one, Motorola asked to just amend that console support onto the existing SUS-SUA contract so that they ran in tandem and then would expire at the same time. So what I'm asking for tonight is to accept that amendment to the 2017 agreement to add the additional support for the consoles.
Thank you, Shelley. Councilman Yerger.
I just have one quick question. I think I have the answer, but this is a 50-50 split between the city and the county. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It'll be 50-50 split. And it was accepted by the PSAP Governance Board at their meeting last week, unanimous acceptance.
Thank you. With that, I make a motion to amend the last paragraph of this resolution to say and add the words after December 2026 to add the words split 50-50 between the city and the county for clarity as to the 145, 947 is actually 50-50 split.
Is there any, is there a second to that amendment? Councilman Ellis?
I second that.
Is there any any issues with that before we vote?
I don't have any issues, no.
Cast your votes.
Councilmember Gibson,
No.
So ask him to do it again. Vern, do you want to
Councilmember
vote again?
Gibson,
Can you get it? No.
Councilmember Ganem,
yes,
motion carries 7-1, Mayor.
Now I would take a motion on the amended resolution 2021-009. Councilman Yerger.
Make a motion to approve amended resolution 2021-009.
Councilman Ligban.
And I will second that.
Cast your votes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ganem,
yes,
the motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to item 11, resolution 2021-011, approving change orders 1 through 6 submitted by Cheever Construction for the city auditorium. This time we'll have staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Nate Schwanke, Recreation Superintendent. This resolution is just to bring to date all of our change orders that we have for the city auditorium remodel. They're all listed out in front of you. Kim Koski was in charge of change orders 1 through 3 and in position for those, and then kind of took over through 6th along with Brian, Shane, and help from Jody and our building inspections department. Like I said, this is just to bring everything to date. Be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Thank you, Nate. Councilman Legman?
So even after this change order, we're still under budget.
Yeah,
correct?
we would have approximately, I know it's listed in here, 440,000 left in the budget.
Councilman Yerger?
I'd make a motion to amend this resolution as well and insert the words after change orders in the last statement to say orders 1 through 6 as submitted by Cheever Construction.
Okay, Councilman Ellis?
Second that motion.
Staff, there any problems with that amendment you see or legal?
No, I don't.
I have none.
Very good. Cast your votes.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yeah, yes.
motion carries
Yes.
6-2.
Okay, I would,
Yeah, put the votes up, Tyler.
now I would take a motion on the amended resolution 2021-011. Councilman Yerger?
Make a motion to approve amended resolution 2021-001 or 011, excuse me.
Councilman Sukram?
I'll second that.
Cast your votes.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Moving on, item 13, motion to approve mayoral appointment to Business Improvement District Number 1. I'll do that report. This is my appointment to the BID, Mr. Brendan Murray. Who attended last BID meeting, very interested in joining the board. And I think we'll bring some great energy and enthusiasm and ideas. So I'm proud to put forward Brendan Murray to the BID district board tonight. So I guess I'd take any comments. Councilman Yerger.
Well, I pulled this off because I've been pulling these off for some time. I've encouraged the mayors past and present to sort of change course in the way we make appointments to city boards and commissions. And I recently contacted Mayor Spelleberg to do so in order to better demonstrate the mutual respect of his position, the nominees or the volunteers for these boards, and the council in fulfilling the requirements of the Fremont Municipal Code. I think changing this to regular agenda on a regular basis demonstrates an overall respect for the process and the community's leadership. I think it allows the person being nominated, if present, to be recognized for their willingness to volunteer to serve the community. It's very much similar to honoring those employees for years of service, which we do regularly at our meetings. And it would facilitate hearing from the appointee or the mayor, if the person is present, about their desire to serve, their vision and goals for serving, and what expertise they would bring to that board position. I think that's important for the public and the council to have an opportunity to comment and to know firsthand what those people bring when they are going to be making those appointments. And I think it's important before the council takes up its obligation to authorize. Now, this is a two-party approach. We have an appointment and we have authorization under the Fremont Municipal Code, and authorization is the council's duty. Personally, I have no prepositions about Brendan Murray's appointment. Probably good selection, Mayor. I think he'll bring a fresh face and ideas to the BID, and so I applaud the mayor's recommendation. And I would move to approve Mr. Murray to the BID board, but I would hopefully and respectfully ask that we could put these on regular agenda rather than consent agenda on a regular basis. Thanks.
Thank you. There's a motion to approve on the floor. I would take a second. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make that second.
cast your votes.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Moving on to unfinished business, item 14. Ordinance 5549, amending Chapter 3, Article 7 of the Fremont Municipal Code, particularly Sections 3-701, Municipal Library Operation and Funding, 3-702, Municipal Library Damaged and Lost Material, 3-703, Municipal Library Book Removal, and Sections 3-704, Municipal Library Cost of Use. This would be for second reading. This time we'll have staff report.
Mayor, City Council, Laura England Biggs, Interim Director, Keene Memorial Library. We are returning with a revised ordinance, making changes that are consistent with the state statutes. Those changes have been vetted by legal counsel and were unanimously recommended by the library board at their January 18, 2021 meeting. I thought since there are two versions of the document in your packet, I would run through quickly the version that the board approved, which begins on page 191 of your council packet. The first change is to simply remove the word municipal and replace it with the word city in all of the headings. We removed the word injures on section 3-702, replacing it with damages. Replaced the word book with material to cover the variety of items that are now housed in the library. We changed 3-704 to say that it shall be free, or that the city library shall issue free library cards to individuals residing within the city limits. Replaced librarian with library director to match the title of that position. 3-705C, we just struck person because the bylaws mention a chair and a secretary, not a chairperson. The board shall establish regular meeting dates at such times as the city council may require in D. Library director in G shall be appointed by the mayor. Basically, that's just replacing librarian with library director and public with city. And I think that is the sum and substance of the changes that the library board approved. Any questions?
Thank you, Laura. Any questions for staff? Councilman Yerger?
I don't really have any questions. At the last meeting, documents were placed in the record with regards to prior boards' recommendations relative to this particular section of Fremont Municipal Code. And so I applaud the director and the board for incorporating some of what was recommended. I would just note this with regards to my own review. That the current library board didn't reincorporate all of those board approved items and amendments that prior boards had put in with regards to who would be allowed to be appointed to library boards, who would control and be responsible for items that impacted the library, whether that would be the mayor, council, or others, and whether or not there were audited or unaudited financials and an extension deadline opportunity. I thought those were appropriate and reasonable changes that were approved by the board previously, even though when the council took this matter up before on a couple of other paragraphs that they chose not to approve, all of this fell by the by. And of course, it's certainly up to the current board at your direction or whatever to incorporate what they feel out of the previous board's recommendations, and they've chosen not to do that. So since the current board sees no apparent reason to incorporate those items. I don't intend to make any further recommendations with regards to those, although I thought they were important and reasoned recommendations at the time. I have no further comment. Thanks.
Councilman Lakeman.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you and the new board now for your changes and your recommendations. And I read through it very thoroughly, and your recommendations look very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
In that regard, then I would need a motion to amend to accept the library board's recommended changes. I'd take a motion in that regard. Councilman Sukram.
Make a motion to take the amendments and recommend a motion for the changes for the ordinance. This is the second reading, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
We're
for the second
amending
reading.
it to accept the board's changes as they are slightly different than the first
Correct.
reading. So that's your motion.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Councilman Jensen.
I'll second that.
Cast your votes.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
the motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Now I would take a motion on the amended ordinance 5549 to hold second reading. Councilman Yerger.
Make a motion to approve the amended ordinance language for ordinance 5549 for second reading.
Councilman Coons.
I'll second that motion.
Cast your votes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
the motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Now have second reading.
An ordinance of the City of Fremont, Nebraska, amending Chapter 3, Article 7 of the Fremont Municipal Code, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance, providing when the fees are effective, and providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect on second reading.
Thank you. Now moving on to new business, item 15, resolution 2021-012 to enter into interlocal agreements with Burt and Cumming counties to join Mideast Regional 911 as remote PSAPs. This time we'll have staff report.
Mayor and City Council, Shelley Hoserland, 911 Director. Approximately 2 years ago, when we started to work on planning for the upgrade to our 911 equipment, the PSAP Governance Board made the decision to upgrade our systems to host a region. As a state, we are moving away from the 1960s copper wire technology and building a statewide IP network to enhance location accuracy and to streamline the efficient call delivery, particularly for wireless devices, to 911. At that time, I began talking with other counties, and Colfax County agreed to join us as a co-host of a regional 911 system. We were both due for upgrades. We have the same vendors, and so we made those plans to upgrade to host. We signed the original interlocal agreement in February of 2020 with Colfax County. Next week, Dodge and Colfax will undergo those upgrades, and we will be joined together and ready to host a 911 region. Burt and Cumming County have agreed to be part of our region. And so these two interlocal agreements before you tonight will allow them to connect to us as remote PSAPs and for us to host them and share all of our 911 equipment as a region. These interlocal agreements were accepted unanimously by the PSAP Governance Board at their meeting last week.
Thank you. Any questions for Shelley? Councilman Yerger.
As I read the agreement, and it's probably pretty standard, this is for equipment.
Yes, sir.
And
Equipment sharing.
And we share on equipment, and we share on the maintenance.
Yes,
and
sir.
Et cetera. So my question isn't around that. So, but I'm interested in understanding how the contract works with regards to make sure that I'm clear. So when we're talking about the dispatch cost, that is the salaries we pay for personnel that that facilitate dispatch. And I see one of the terms for sharing expenses is the number of positions that you have. So that's the number of positions at each one of these interlocal partners that they have for dispatch?
Yes, that's correct.
So if you have the majority of the dispatchers, you're going to pay the lion's share of the maintenance and contract facilities. And if someone provides no dispatchers, I don't know if that's even possible, they would pay zero? Even though they're in the
Well,
interlocal?
you wouldn't have no dispatchers,
They could
but
have
yes,
one.
if you only had one position,
So they would have very
they
minimal.
would pay less.
They would have minimal cost.
Yes.
That's probably.
But the more partners we add, the more we can divide out the cost. So, but yes, that's true.
Yeah. My reason for trying to understand the cost relationship between all the partners was really one that was prompted by earlier discussion with regards to pay for our dispatchers. And so if the city were to increase its dispatcher pay, or other interlocals were to increase their dispatcher pay, it's each your own cost. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. This is strictly sharing the 911 equipment and network.
And in the past, has this relationship of splitting the expenses for maintenance and equipment based on the number of dispatch positions, has that been equitable, do we think? With regards to my example of, let's say you have 15 and somebody else has 1? Is it because they use less equipment, therefore they should have less cost? Or with regards to the equipment and the maintenance cost, is that the appropriate split?
Yes, and the number of positions kind of indicates the level of activity, the number of calls. So we didn't really base it on the number of calls, but the more calls you get, the more dispatchers you need. So it kind of evens out or kind of indicates how much, who's getting more use out of the equipment.
Usage. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other comments or questions? Any
Mayor,
comments from the, yes, go ahead.
I just want to praise Shelley for all her hard work in
Thank you.
setting up these regions. She has worked her tail off, is paying dividends, and we're not done yet. We still think it can grow even bigger. But, as Shelley said a long time ago, the key to this whole dispatch is regionalization. And that's what Shelley has started in Northeast Nebraska. And she continues to work hard to improve it. So thanks to Shelley.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Any comments from council? I would take a motion to approve this resolution 2021-012. Councilman Coons.
Yeah, make a motion to approve resolution 2021-012.
Councilman Yerger.
Second Councilman Coons motion.
Cast your votes.
Councilmember Ganem.
Yes.
Councilmember Ganem.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Thank you. Item 16, discussion, Northeast Nebraska Solid Waste Coalition budget and rates for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2021. This time we'll have a brief report from Councilmember Jensen.
Well, according to the Northeast Nebraska Solid Waste Consortium interlocal agreement, a town hall meeting is held in the 3 largest communities each year to review the coalition's proposed budget and rates. Included in the agenda package is a proposed budget for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2021 that leaves rates unchanged at $24 per ton and assumes waste connection fees, continues operation of the coalition landfill with no fee increase. Balance forward increases of $1,009,381 going from $5,376,814 last year to $6,386,195 this year, primarily due to normal operations of the coalition. Use fee increase of 381,724 or 14% was due to a 15,851 ton increase in budgeted tonnage for the regular waste, with tipping fees at $24 per ton. Budgeted use fees are 3,147,646. Interest income decreased $61,000 due to a decrease in budgeted item interest rates from 2% last year to 0.075% this year. Personnel costs increased $1,094,940, 2.06% increase. Personnel costs included a 1% cost of living adjustment and the normal merit increase. Disposal fees increase was $84,247 or 7.74% due to the increase in the budgeted tonnage. Other professional fees decreased $131,041 due to engineering for a master plan budgeted in the prior year. This year's capital outlay is $300,000 for vertical and lateral permit modifications. Also included in the agenda packet is the post-closure care fund budget. The transfer from the operation fund increases $27,895 or 7.91% from $352,500 last year to $380,395 this year. This increase is based because determining the rate of the landfill was budgeted at 20 years because of the increase in the tonnage. Now that remaining life is 17 years budgeted, so we need to increase those so we have the money for the closure. And with that is the report.
Thank you, Councilman Jensen. I should have mentioned, I appreciate your work on the board, and that's why you gave the report. So thank you for that thorough report. This is a discussion item. I guess is there any questions for Councilman Jensen? Councilman Yerger?
You'll have to bear with me, Mark, if you already put your document in the record. Is your document that you just reported from in the public record? I think it was. I wasn't sure what page it was. Thank you. I just want to make sure it was in there. Thanks.
Any other questions for Councilman Jensen? Any comments from the public? Any comments from council? Seeing none, this is a discussion only item. Thanks again, Councilman Jensen, for your report. Moving on, item 17, resolution 2021-013, awarding the contract to Bianchi Electric LLC for the construction of substation H. This time we'll have staff report.
Troy Shaben, Assistant City Administrator, Utilities. This is the final contract you're going to see before you for the substation H. The past 3 or 4 months, we bought 5 or 6 of them to you. That was us acquiring the equipment and materials for the construction of substation H. This is only the contractor who's going to take the materials that we have on hand now and is going to construct the substation. Bianchi Electric was the low bidder. We did a check on their references. They checked out well. They are a firm out of Indianapolis. They've been doing a lot of work in Kansas lately. We haven't ever used them here. They are a subsidiary of what is one of the largest substation contractors in the country, infrastructure and energy alternatives. They are primarily, they've been building substations for wind and solar. So you can imagine they've been quite busy in the past. With their bid of about $1.6 million, that brings the total cost of the substation to $5,156,137. The original estimate was $5,141,137. So our estimate was within about $15,000 on a $5.2 million bid. That's a pretty good job, I would say, by our engineers. I can take any questions anybody has.
Thank you, Troy. Any questions for staff? Any comments from the public? Any additional comments from council? I would take a motion in regards to this item. Councilman Coons.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2021-013.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second that.
Cast your votes.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Thank you.
Moving on, item 18. Ordinance 5551, updating city salary schedule to include community service officer and community service supervisor. And there is a request to hold final reading. This time we'll have a staff report.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, Jennifer McDuffie, Human Resources Director. This is the salary ordinance to add the community service officer and community service supervisor positions that have been mentioned in previous discussions tonight. They are both outlined on the ordinance that we provided. They are highlighted. Community service officer would be a 15.0 pay grade. Community service supervisor would be a 16.0 pay grade. We are requesting tonight that the rules be suspended and this go to final reading so that we can begin the recruiting and hiring process for these individuals. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions for staff? Councilman Sukram, are you?
No, sorry.
Councilman Yerger?
Yes. Does the police department currently have a code enforcement officer? And if so, what's the pay scale?
We do not have a code enforcement officer.
We have a person on the payroll. I thought her name was Melissa Ball. I thought that was the function she was serving. That's not accurate?
I believe she's a code enforcement assistant.
Code enforcement assistant. So I didn't ask my question properly. What's the pay rate for a code enforcement assistant? It's probably in the table. I could look it up, I guess.
Yeah, it's
11.5.
in the information I sent you yesterday, Mr. Yerger.
11.5. It's a code 11.5, $14.76.
Okay.
Yep. How many CSOs is the city contemplating with regards to the provision of animal control at this time? And what % of time will CSOs be working on animal control versus other code enforcement or other police department duties and functions that are being defined for this position?
I think that question may be better answered by Chief Elliott. He has a better picture of what this position is going to do day to day.
Yeah,
Chief Elliott, are you on Zoom?
He was here, but
He was going to join by Zoom.
He's raising his. Chief Elliott, are you available?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, what I would tell you is that the community service officers would be used for animal control, code enforcement, and property evidence duties. I can't give you an exact percentage amount of time that they will work on animal control versus working on code enforcement, but it will be a large part of their duties. The animal control portion will.
Excuse me, go ahead.
Jeff, didn't we say they were about a third, or just starting out? That's what we estimated.
Well, I would tell you, I suspect the animal control portion is going to be larger than the, certainly than the property, probably larger than the code enforcement as well. You could make all three jobs
complete code enforcement and keep them busy. But I think animal control would be their primary responsibility.
Will code enforcement officers be authorized to issue tickets, not only for their parking and traffic violate, whatever they're doing in that regard, but also for animal control?
Yes, that's how we envision it.
Okay. The only other issue that I would raise tonight is that typically, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer or others that might know the answer to this, but typically when we put new job titles or whatever into the pay scale, we are afforded the opportunity to have job descriptions, job comparison materials, and the kinds of things that I asked for in an email of HR, and ultimately in which Jennifer did respond and provide information. However, that material was not included in our packet, which I believe is standard procedure for developing something new and making sure that we understand the duties. And as I understand it, the code enforcement officer position is perhaps going to be obliterated. The others are in draft form, and the duties associated with this position in the materials that we received after the packet was put out are rather extensive. And in order to give this full and due justice, I'm quite uncomfortable with going to first reading. As a matter of fact, I'm quite uncomfortable that this is even being considered without that material being in our packet. Therefore, I would make a motion to continue this item until the next meeting.
Is there any questions for Chief or Jennifer from council?
You have a motion, you have a privileged motion to continue, so.
Yeah, my apologies. Okay. There's a motion on the, you said it would continue indefinitely
No, to the next meeting.
to the next meeting? Okay.
This material, I believe, should have been in the packet for the public and council to read and receive as a part of doing this work tonight. I just think we should have procedure and we should put it
Which
off.
we
to the
don't
next
include
meeting.
that information. We have never.
We don't need a job description to determine what the pay grades are.
Nope, we've never. We always just brought you the changes.
I'd like to see that change, and I still make a motion to continue.
Councilman Ellis? Hey, Brad, can you turn it off?
Right, is there any way we can just do the first reading and get more information? So is that essentially what you're asking for, Brad?
No, he had a motion to continue.
Third reading immediately. I'm uncomfortable with that. I'd rather have the information in these job descriptions full and complete and as a part of our packet material, which did not happen by the policy deadline as to when this material should be given to council for consideration this evening. And for that reason alone, I'd like to continue this to next meeting till that's all in our packet.
There's a privileged motion, so.
I'm not sure what to do here. I want to go forward with the first reading. So I guess I would second Brad's motion.
Can we hold first reading if we?
Yeah, but Travis needs to weigh in because we have a motion on the floor. It's a privileged motion. There's no discussion. You need to either
There's
get
been
a
a
second
motion
or
to
not.
table in a second. Yep, Brian, you're correct. So we just need to vote on the motion now to continue to the next meeting.
Okay. Right. Okay. Cast your votes.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
No.
the motion fails 3-5. Yeah.
Okay, I would, again, there's no other questions for Chief Elliott or,
No, could
or
we have Jennifer address the question about providing the job description and the information?
I don't believe it's standard practice for us to provide job descriptions or the comparison information typically to council. We've only done this a few times since I've been here, but typically we do not provide that information to council.
Councilman Yerger.
Well, I would make a motion to hold first reading of ordinance 5551 under the pretext that by second reading, we will have the requisite job description material for review at second reading.
You said we don't do that.
Councilman Legman. Councilman Ellis.
I second that motion. Just because we haven't done it in the past doesn't mean we can't start doing that.
Legal, can you, this is an amendment?
No, it's just a motion right now.
Just a motion and a
I would-
second?
Councilmember Yerger, I would do the motion first to have it included in the packet next meeting, and then do a motion to hold first reading, because having these documents in the record is irrelevant to the purposes of holding a first reading. So if you wanted to do two separate motions, that would be more appropriate.
Yeah, Councilman Yerger.
I would prefer not to do two separate motions. I would like to make a motion that we approve first reading conditioned on the inclusion, conditioned on the inclusion of that material for second reading.
There's a motion and a second. I guess I'd take any other discussion at this point on this. Councilman Legman.
Yeah, I trust staff. I trust HR. I trust they're not leading us astray. Sometimes you have to trust your staff and move forward.
All right, any other discussion from council?
Could you repeat what was said? Because it was off on what you're presenting. I'm sorry, my sound, I didn't hear it.
What are we
Yes.
voting on?
Yeah,
This is
Councilman
salary.
Yerger, can you
We're-
repeat?
Yeah, what we're voting on.
I had a motion on the floor to hold first reading conditioned on the receipt of the job description material at the time we have second reading.
Okay. Call the question.
Any other comments from council? Councilman Jensen.
I'll just make sure my position is clear here. I will not vote for this in that language. I will vote to hold first reading, and I will vote for it to go to final reading as requested by staff.
Councilman Coons.
The request was made because we need to get this on the forefront and get these challenges that the city has under control. So I, along with Councilman Legman, I've worked with staff, I've worked with Chief Elliott, and their recommendations I'm comfortable with.
Any other comments from council?
Was there a motion by Councilmember Yerger and a second by Councilmember Ellis? Is that
Correct.
okay.
Correct. So I think at this time we can have a vote. There's no other comments. So cast your votes.
Councilmember Gibson,
No.
Councilmember Ganem,
No.
the motion fails 2-6.
Okay.
We'll put the votes up, Tom.
Councilman Coons.
I believe there was a request to waive this reading and go ahead and proceed forward to the third reading. If there
We
was,
need-
I'd like to make that motion.
We
We need to introduce and then.
we need to introduce,
First.
have first reading, and then we have not done public comment yet. So
That's correct.
I will, before I entertain that, is there any comments from the public?
Is that still green, Susan?
Yes, it
Yep,
is.
good.
Susan Jacobus, 1805 North Diaz, here in Fremont, Nebraska. Actually, we have had those job descriptions, and when we did an array and changed positions and looked at salary changes, we did have those job descriptions. And Mr. Legban was part of that. Mr. Coons was part of that, as was I. And those job descriptions also set grade levels. So when they were changed during budget time, we had them during our open discussion period when we totally tore apart the budget. But beside the point, with these positions, they're non-union, and they're part of the police department. Part of your packet on getting these through was that there was a proposed legislation, which isn't even out of committee yet, to base part of this on. These are non-commissioned officers. These won't be certified police officers. Do you need these positions more so than you need police boots on the ground that are certified? I can appreciate that you may need the community service officer in whatever capacity is needed. That should be added, but you still haven't added any boots on the ground and certification for police officers. This question hasn't been answered. You haven't addressed that yet. And what about the training? If you're going to have any kind of animal control, which Chief Elliott had mentioned, this would be a third or the supermajority of the position, where are they going to get trained at? They're not going to be able to go down and just job shadow and get certified. I would assume a liability issue insurance-wise for full animal control within the city, they're going to have certification and training. And with that said, your pay grades. You already have a code enforcement assistant. What happens to that position? Does that get dissolved? Does that turn into a community service position? And you have a supervisor, grade pay 16 on here. Is this going to be a supervisor of one? Who is this person supervising? Why are they not answering directly to the police chief then? Or somebody else from the department? Why do you need a supervisor of one? There's only two positions. These are questions that you haven't been asked. When we do salaries, and when you set your grade levels, there are comparisons based on different cities. Likely Columbus and Norfolk would be the closest. They're closest to our size. Likely Beatrice, Kearney, Grand Island. But you don't have those in front of you, and you should. And see what their job descriptions and title. You have had those, and I've seen the head nods. No, we haven't, but we have, because I still have custody of them when we discussed the budget. And this was in 2017. And we went through some of those job descriptions that were being changed. And when the library assistants were added. But beside the point, you have some unanswered questions here. And part of it is the training. Why are they not part of the union? And will the legislation pass that Justin Wayne has proposed? It's not even out of committee yet. It literally got discussed January 13.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? All I'll say in regards to this is that I know that our HR director, chief, have worked very hard to come up with the job description and look at these positions. You look at other communities surrounding us, they have CSOs that do these things. We're an outlier really when it comes to communities that we don't have this. And so, and you look at these positions, yes, we are having trouble hiring and getting officers on our force just with the demand out there. So not only is this an opportunity to bring them on to do animal control, property evidence, and code enforcement, but also to groom them to be able to come into our force. And so it's a way now to shore up what we're doing right now in the community with those three items, but also, give us a hiring platform to bring in, guys that we know can do the job and have, can bring them on. So I think this has been well thought out by staff. And I would support, holding first reading and getting moving on this as quickly as possible. So Is there any other comments from the public? Any other comments from council? Councilman Legman.
Well, if there's no more comments, I'd like to propose approving ordinance 5551 to hold first reading for now.
Is that a second? Because we have a motion on the floor from Councilman Coons.
Okay, that'd be a second.
Cast your votes to introduce for first reading only. This is a motion to introduce and hold first reading.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
motion carries 7-1.
We need to have first reading now.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska pertaining to pay plan for officers and employees repealing ordinance number 5533 and all other ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for publication in pamphlet form and providing an effective date on first reading.
Thank you. Now I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules and move to final reading. Councilman Jensen,
I will make that motion.
Councilman Coons,
And I'll second that motion.
cast your votes.
Councilman Ganem,
Yes.
Councilman Gibson,
Yes.
motion carries 6-2.
We'll now have final reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska pertaining to pay plan for officers and employees repealing ordinance number 5533 and all other ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for publication in pamphlet form and providing an effective date on final reading.
Cast your final vote on this ordinance.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes. Yes.
the motion carries 6-2, Mayor.
Moving on, item 19, resolution 2021-014, approving an amendment to Summit Medical Staffing LLC's local option economic development loan and authorizing the mayor to sign the appropriate loan transactions. This time we'll have staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Lottie Mitchell, Plan Administrator. Tonight we have a request to amend an existing LB 840 award from Summit Medical Staffing. Summit Medical Staffing is a medical staffing agency that recruits and places medical professionals where they're needed across the United States. They relocated to Fremont earlier in 2020 and have rapidly outgrown the space they're renting on North Bell Street. So quickly, in fact, they have moved forward with the purchase of 2 lots at the tech park to construct their own facility to allow them to grow at the pace that they're currently expanding at. So their original award was for $200,000, 50% forgiven, 50% repayable, to be paid out in 2 separate tranches. The first tranche has been made, and they are making payments on the 50% repayable portion. They currently have 12 employees, and they've committed to creating at least 55 additional positions within 4 years of the amendment of their current LB 840 award. Their average annual salary is $45,000 plus commission. The creation of these jobs will help satisfy our community development block grant that we have for the tech park. The requirements for that grant state that the city of Fremont is responsible for the creation of 31 new jobs. If we do not meet those requirements, we will be required to pay back the entire grant award of just over $975,000. So this project is vital to the success of us meeting our grant requirements. They are going to construct a new facility at their property at the tech park. Their current budget or estimated cost for their new facility is just over $2 million. Staff is recommending an LB 840 award not to exceed $496,894.64. And the reason we say not to exceed is because when the loan documents are executed, depending on what their repayable portion of their loan is, that'll be the dollar amount that is forgiven. So what they owe currently is the $46,894.64. The award will not exceed that. We would recommend then 100% forgiveness of that award. The performance terms would be to retain the 12 existing full-time positions they have right now for a period of 5 years, create the 30 new full-time benefited positions by April of 2022, which is our grant deadline, retain those for 5 years, create an additional 15 new jobs by the end of the 3rd year and 10 new jobs by the end of the 4th year, and retain all for five years. The Citizen Advisory Review Committee and the Local Option Review Team both considered this request, and both are recommending that council approve the amendment to the original LB 840 award. The current fund balance is $916,856.21, and the balance increases at a rate of $65,000 to $90,000 per month. We do have the applicant with us here this evening, Ashley Gross from Summit Medical, who would like to say a few words about their project.
Hello, good evening. Ashley Gross, 8130 Watercolor Drive, Land O'Lakes, Florida. First of all, council members, Mr. Mayor, thank you guys so much for considering this revisement on our current award. Our expansion has really blossomed since coming into the city of Fremont, and for that we thank you originally. But we also want to keep expanding and keep getting further and further roots, and with this award, we'll be able to do so. We're very honored to be part of the city. We're very honored to be able to help the CDBG grant as well by fulfilling that need and expanding the job growth in the city of Fremont. As a person born and bred here, and many of you know me, you know that I'm very dedicated to that part and like to see the growth of Fremont. And we want to continue to be part of that. So just want to say thank you guys for consideration and answer any questions you may have about what exactly we're doing and where we're going with this.
Thank you, Ashley. Any questions? Councilman Yerger?
I don't have any questions for the applicant. All I can say is I applaud you for what you're bringing to Fremont in that regard, and the commitments that you have in your proposal for the employees and the creation and the retention and all of the things that you bring. And very appreciative of that. I do have kind of a general question. It's really one for Lottie.
Sure.
Because it doesn't affect necessarily your work specifically, but I wanted you to refresh me, if you would, both for the LORT and the CAR committees. They generally use in determining their approval for outright grants and forgivable loans and repayable loans some sort of criteria in that regard. And I'm wondering if in general, those two committees place any value on the concept of what I'll term paying it forward when it comes to LB 840 money. That is, when we do outright grants and when we give 100% forgivable loans versus participative, whether it's 50-50 or 75-25, whatever there would be, that those that are receiving funds participate in that way. Because if they do repay some of that back, doesn't LB 840 have better wherewithal to help other participants down the road at a greater extent? And I'm just, that's my thought process here. And I'm wondering, is that a criteria for these boards? We're forgiving some of the loan payment here. It's not large, $46,000. But in general, when they go through their assessments, is that something that's in the back of their mind, this pay it forward concept? I know we have had other LB 840 requests where people did have funds in the game and they made repayments of some sort on some part. And that allows us to affect future grants or loans or to other people as well. So I'm just curious, could you refresh me what those two committees do in considering the pay it forward concept?
Yes, we are constantly considering the returning these dollars to the LB 840, making those loans a repayable loan. A lot of times when requests come to us, we have to keep in mind the the responsibilities of the boards. And the Citizens Advisory Review Committee has been tasked to look at the applications from the standpoint of, does this fit state statute? Is this allowable by what our plan is? And then they can weigh in on the repayable or forgiveness portions. The local option review team has been tasked to look at the applications from the standpoint of, what is the benefit to our community? How many jobs are being created? What is the capital investment? Is there sales tax being collected on this? And so theirs is looking at from that standpoint. We constantly talk about the repayable option on these projects. We also keep in mind that this fund was created and approved by the voters to generate and stimulate and incentivize job creation. So with all of those things in mind, we bring to you our recommendations.
Thank you. Any other questions for Lottie or the applicant? Any comments from the public? Additional comments?
Gary Clark.
Gary Clark, go ahead.
Good evening, council members and mayor. I just wanted to mention a note of congratulations to you all for the work that you've done to build up this fund and to create an opportunity like this with Ashley and Summit Medical. I believe that this is probably the quintessential example of what Fremont wants. Homegrown business or a youth coming back to the community and building up a business like this. Just amazing. And I just want to give kudos to Ashley and his team for their efforts, Brian and Lottie for working together in this capacity, and then the city council for being willing to push these things forward. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Any comments from council? Councilman Yerger?
I'm assuming there's not going to be much comment from council, but if there is, I'll yield. Otherwise, I would make a motion to approve resolution 2021-014.
Councilman Jensen?
If you have no further comment, I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Very good. Congratulations, Ashley, and I wish you the best. And again, nice to have homegrown Fremonters come back and invest in our community. So
And we look forward to a couple of years, you'll outgrow this facility.
Yeah. Item 20, Resolution 2021-015, approving a local option economic development loan for Compound Holdings LLC and New Horizons Cold Storage LLC, and authorizing the mayor to sign the appropriate loan transactions. This time we'll have staff report.
Mayor, City Council, Lottie Mitchell, Plan Administrator. This request is application for an LB 840 award, as Mayor stated, from Compound Holdings LLC and New Horizons Cold Storage LLC. They are proposing to construct a cold storage facility at the northwest corner of County Road T and North Yeager Road. They are in the process of purchasing the 52-acre site that is located there. Phase 1 of their facility would be approximately 200,000 square feet, with plenty of room for expansion on their site. They are proposing to create 51 jobs with an average wage of $42,000 plus benefits. As stated, they do have plenty of room to expand for phase 2. And while the details of phase 2 have not been solidified, they are already trending in that direction. The current project costs are estimated at approximately $40 million. Staff is recommending an award of $500,000 with 100% forgiveness based on the performance terms that we will review. And it is contingent upon the closing of the sale of the property located northwest of North Yeager Road and County Road T. So the performance terms we would propose would be completing annexation into the city of Fremont within 12 months of the sale of the property. In year one, a minimum investment of $30 million. And by the end of year two, a total of 25 full-time jobs created, retained for 5 years. The end of year three, a total of 35 jobs. And by the end of year four, a total of 51 jobs. All jobs stated would be required to be retained for a period of 5 years. Staff is also recommending that if the sale of the property hasn't closed by July 1st, that they should come back to the committee to revise and take a look at the project. The Citizens Advisory Review Committee and the Local Option Review Team both reviewed the application. Both are making a recommendation to council to approve the $500,000 at 100% forgiveness. The Local Option Review Team did request that both Compound Holdings and New Horizons Cold Storage be listed on the loan documents. The fund balance is $916,856.21, and again, does increase by $65,000 to $90,000 monthly. Joining us by Zoom this evening is Roger Rao and Adam Brantman with the companies, and both are available to talk about their projects.
Thanks, Lottie. Adam Brantman, 922 River Street, Iowa City, Iowa. Mayor, city council members, thank you for the opportunity. Apologize for not being able to be there in person. The weather hit us like I think it hit you guys. But we did have a chance to meet, I believe, a couple of weeks ago with most of you. And so I think you're familiar with the project, but as Lottie mentioned, we're proposing to build a refrigerator warehouse to service the protein processors in the area. The proposed project would be located at the southwest corner of Yeager Road and Highway 30. When we originally met, the project was projected to be about 200,000 square feet, 20,000 pallet positions. As we've done a little bit more work in the area, we've at this point agreed to preliminary terms with another company that was looking to build a facility in the greater Omaha area. And so right now, we're excited to announce that we're likely looking at an even larger project. Increase in size of the project, increasing the number of jobs. Sorry, I'm getting a bit of an echo there. But the location and the scope of the project are generally the same. As Lottie mentioned, we'll be creating at least 50 jobs with an average annual salary of at least $42,000 and providing benefits. Happy to answer any questions. I know Roger's on the phone as well.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions for the applicant or Lottie from council? Councilman Yerger.
Well, part of the reason for my asking the previous question applies to both of these. So I hope both applicants understand. I wanted the background in both of these cases, that they're both good applications. I just wanted that background. In this particular case, I'm interested, you've set up in the terms and conditions for annexation to be within 12 months. This is property that they don't yet own. With annexation, they're going to need rezoning. They're going to need a redevelopment plan. I assume these are probably questions for Jennifer Dam as much as they are for you, but those terms and conditions aren't part of this commitment that we have to have these things in this certain sequence before we would give out grant money. And I'm concerned, in fact, that the timing of this may be early in the process, since we haven't annexed, we haven't zoned, we haven't had the redevelopment plan. All of those filings haven't been made yet with the city. And contingent upon all of this is what is a sale. It's labeled in the resolution. But I believe both of those probably should say purchase rather than sale, because they're buying the property, not selling. So I think the resolution already needs to change in a couple places just to reflect what's actually happening here. But I'm concerned, is it typical that we would do grant applications and awardments of funds before any of these things have happened, or they're not even part of the conditions that we say have to happen as a part of this, because zoning and redevelopment plan and those kinds of things are critical elements?
You have stated that in order to be annexed, they will need to be rezoned. They will need to be redevelopment plan, all of those items. And so I don't know that it's necessary to also include those items if they're required to get to the annexation point. And so that's why we've allowed for 12 months time for that to be accomplished.
Yeah, they're doing their due diligence. And so part of their due diligence is to make sure their financing is in order before they can move on the project. This is a key component of their financing. Remember, LB 840 is always the last dollar. And so we ask them to make sure they have bank financing. They come to us for the last dollars. They count on these for the last dollars before they want to move on. This is a key component to their due diligence and required to know whether they're eligible to get this money before they want to move on.
Will they be applying for any other funding assistance with regards to annexation, for example, TIF?
Yes, they will be applying for TIF.
That would be in a redevelopment plan that we have not yet seen.
That's correct. It'll come to Planning Commission in February.
Any other questions for the applicant or Lottie? Any comments from the public? Gary Clark.
He just needs to unmute Gary.
Thank you. Gary Clark, Greater Fremont Development Council, City of Fremont. I just wanted to follow up. I thought it was a great question by Council Member Yeager. I just wanted to, Council Member Yeager, I just wanted to say that this is just simply the process and nature of economic development work. And essentially, your applicant has laid the groundwork for multiple funding streams and options. They've explored all of these possibilities. And I'll just back up a little bit and say kudos to Mayor Spellerberg, kudos to Brian Newton and Lottie and the applicant, because this has been months at a time developing conversations, looking at sites. This was a project that could have gone anywhere. And so this is actually, Councilmember Yeager, this is actually your city's efforts, your staff, all working the way it's supposed to with economic development. They're laying the groundwork to bring this together. So incentives are a part of that package. Planning for the site development and other issues that might be tied to it. They've done their due diligence. And this brings us here to help be the catalyst to solidify this. And so in our partnership, we look at this as an opportunity to ring the cowbell if the city council moves forward with this. So last statement to say to you all, I just wanted to quickly say, this is kind of my last city council meeting with the Greater Fremont Development Council. And so number one, I think this is an excellent project. I feel like you all are in great hands with Lottie and Brian and Mayor Spellerberg. They've been working with me for 3+ years, and I just want to thank you all and thank the applicant for their interest in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
And best of luck to you, Gary.
Yes, thanks for all your efforts for the city of Fremont. I wish you the best in the future, Gary. Any other comments from the public? All right, any other comments from council? Councilman Yeager.
Yes, I would hope that the applicant doesn't take anything away with regards to any opposition to what they're bringing to Fremont. After visiting with them, they're bringing a stellar facility into the community, and I recognize that. And good paying jobs at what was stated at the $45,000 plus benefit type jobs. So it wasn't those kinds of things that prompted me to ask the questions that I was asking. And in that regard, I would only ask that we make amendments to the resolution to change the word sale to purchase in a couple of places. In particular, it's in the second whereas statement where it says contingent upon closing of the sale. I think it's the purchase of property. And then in the last whereas statement, it says void if the sale of the property hasn't closed. I think it's the purchase of the property. It's probably minor, but these folks are actually buying property, not selling it. And I think it's appropriate. So I make a recommendation, we change the wording.
Councilman Legman.
Yeah, my question then is for legal. Do we need to make those changes, or what do you feel about it?
Certainly don't need to. I don't have a problem with them either way.
Hey, Travis, can you just repeat that? I don't think everybody heard you.
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, Councilmember Legman, you don't need to make the changes. It's a style choice, but I do not oppose the changes either.
Thank you. Councilman Yeager, that was a motion, right? Okay, all right. Is there a second? Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of second. I would move on to any additional comments from council. I would, if no seeing none, I would take a motion in regards to this item. Councilman Legban.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-015.
I don't think the rest of.
Councilman Jensen.
I'll second that.
Cast your votes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ganem, Councilmember Ganem,
You're muted, Sally.
Yes.
thank you. Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to item 22. Motion authorizing the mayor to sign the contract with Spangenberg Phillips Tice Architecture LLC for the architectural fees for the library expansion project redesign. This time we'll have staff report.
Mayor, City Council, Laura England Biggs, Interim Library Director, Keene Memorial Library. We have been working with SPT to redesign the library. We started with a selection committee made up of myself, Barbara Christensen, and Denise Kai, who's the president of the Friends of Keene Memorial Library. We put out an RFP for architectural firms, reviewed their presentations. We interviewed 2 of them, and using the selection criteria provided through our owner's rep, Tetrad Property Group, we came to the selection of Spangenberg, Phillips, and Tice. They are proposing payment of 5.85% of the estimated construction costs of $7 million, which translates into $409,500. We do have 2 requests for an amendment on page, I was going to have that marked.
It's page 8 or something of the agreement.
It's
wasn't it?
page 8 of the agreement, which is page 334 of your packet. What we're proposing to amend is 3.5.1 general, unstrike either competitive bids, strike negotiated proposals, unstrike 3.5.2 through 3.5.2.3, and then strike the negotiated proposals section 3.5.3. We would also request that the architect inform the owner of any subcontractors engaged in the performance of this agreement. We've reviewed these amendments with the contract, or with the architect, excuse me. They had no problem with the amendments.
Thank you. Any questions for Laura? Councilman Yeager?
I'm sorry, I didn't have.
Okay. Get any questions for Laura? Any additional comments from the public? Any additional comments from council? I would, seeing none, take a motion to amend according to our library director's amendments. Councilman Jensen,
Yes, I'll make the motion to amend as requested by the library director.
Councilman Coons,
I'll second that motion.
cast your votes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ganem.
Yes.
The motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Now I would take a motion authorizing the amended contract. Councilman Coons,
Make a motion to authorize the amended contract.
Councilman Legman,
I will second that.
cast your votes.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 23, King Memorial Library annual report. This time we'll have staff report.
This report covers our 2019-2020 annual fiscal year, which is October 1 to September 30. I won't belabor it due to the hour. I do want to point out that my staff did a stellar job through COVID. We were closed 100 days approximately. Normally we're open 354 days a year. We were open 254. Our total circulation went down as one would expect, but our daily average circulation rose from 367 items per day to 437. So that's 70 items more per day during the time we were serving the public. I think Fremont needed its library and we were glad to answer that call. I also want to just give a shout out to the finance department for their quick turnaround on the numbers. Without their assistance, I could not have had this report ready.
Thank you. Any questions for Laura? Councilman Yerger?
I just want to thank you and applaud you for all you accomplished during the COVID time at the library. That was an horrendous, I won't call it an opportunity, but it was a task. And I agree with you 100% that making sure that the library functioned during that time, even though it was difficult, was pretty important to the community. So I applaud you for that and your staff. So be sure to carry that message back from me.
Thank you, I shall.
Also appreciate the fact that you got the report completed for tonight, and state statute requires it, obviously. And so getting it done was an important item. I do want to bring about something, and it may not be so much a question for you as two questions for legal. Nebraska statute 51-213 addresses the completion of this report by the deadline, which you have met. But I see in your report, and it doesn't have anything to do with the statistical information that's throughout the majority of your report, because that's not what's at issue here. There's a footnote in the financial data, though, that says that this is unaudited material. And so my ask, and state statute doesn't deal with whether it needs to be audited or final data. But I would ask legal counsel at the end of the state statute, it says this report shall be verified by affidavit of the proper officers of the library. And coming with an extensive background in accounting, I guess, if I was to have to sign an affidavit in that regard, I'd probably be a little tentative to sign it if the information wasn't final audited information. And I'm okay with accepting the report as filed. But I would think that it ought to be supplemented when the financial data is actually fully audited and complete. It may not change much. You might be 99% correct. I don't know. And maybe you don't know either, although history might bear it out that it doesn't change much. But I would ask legal, because it's not inherent in the documents that I see before us tonight, about the report shall be verified by affidavit of proper officers of the library. What does that mean? And do we need to have that in our material to accept this report as being anything more than preliminary, even if I would suggest that we need the financial data supplemented for actual. Do we also need it supplemented for the affidavit of an officer of the library?
Yes, thank you for the question, Councilmember Yerger. I can say with certainty, I do not have an issue with the report being accepted by the council today. I will have to research on whether the report should need to be supplemented with, I guess, in your terms, an audited version. So I will look into that. And I'll also look into the definition of what the, exactly what the statute requires in that vein.
Thank you, Travis. Any other questions for Laura? Jody Sanders?
Just a minute. Okay, go ahead, Jody.
Good evening, Mr. Members of Council. Jody Sanders, Director of Finance. Just a couple of points I'd like to make. First of all, we're just being very specific when we say that those numbers were unaudited. We don't anticipate there to be any adjustments to those as a result of the audit. As someone mentioned it, I think Mr. Yerger mentioned, it is possible that there could be changes, but highly unlikely. And further, the information from the library report that you see is in far greater detail than what's included in the audited financial statements. So one can't really take the library report and trace numbers through to what is reported in the audit.
Thank you, Jody. Councilman Yerger?
Jody, the audit that would underpin this or whatever, when is that actually completed? That's the contingent item here. I know it doesn't get done in time, and that's why we receive it this way. So when is the audit that would be necessary to prove in the numbers as final? When does that actually occur?
Typically in the month of March, we have the final numbers put together, and the auditors bring the report to council. By state statute, we are also required to have that audit sent in to the state auditor's office by March 31st.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Not, I'll go to any comments from the public. Any, seeing none, any comments from council? Councilman Yerger?
I'd like to make a motion to receive the report as filed today, contingent upon any necessary statement to remove the unaudited footnote, and to get the information that Travis is going to look at as to whether or not we need to have appended to this an affidavit from proper officers of the library board. And if those things are necessary, they should come back in a supplemental filing. And so I'd like to have this approved or received with the contingency that those items come in if necessary. Removing the footnote should be simple, and I don't know what Travis will find out with regards to the affidavit.
Travis, will we need to receive this again then when we have that information?
I'm not sure. That's what I'm going to find out. So
According to state law, we have to receive this now by the 1st of, I think it's
Second
February.
Monday in February.
Second Monday in February. So this is your last meeting. You have to receive this today.
yeah, yes, that is accurate as well.
Okay.
As far as the supplementation, I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. I guess I take a second to that motion to receive based on those. Can you repeat your conditions again, Brad?
I'll second that.
Okay. Councilman Ellis seconded. Okay. Cast your votes.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson.
Yes.
The motion carries 6-2.
Thank you very much, and thanks for all your hard work again.
Thank you.
Second that, yep. Moving on, item 24, resolution 2021-016, approving the airport capital improvement plan. This time we'll have staff report.
Mayor and City Council, David Godikin, Director of Public Works, City Engineer. This item is an item that we do annually. It's the capital improvement plan for the airport that we submit to the FAA and the Nebraska Department of Aeronautics. The documents that you have before you, as in the past, are originally prepared by the Department of Aeronautics, edited by the city, and then approved by the Airport Advisory Board. This item did go to the Airport Advisory Board at their January meeting and was approved unanimously by the board. It's a CIP plan, and it's crucial for us because we have to have a CIP that we submit to the Department of Aeronautics so that any future funding for the airport, it shows on our CIP. It's not a budget document similar to what the city prepares a CIP. It's a document that we project out what we think is going to happen, what we hope will happen. So therefore, if federal monies come available, it's in our CIP, and then we can apply for those federal dollars. I'll kind of hit on the highlights of the CIP. Probably the immediate project would be the construction of the terminal. We have a contract awarded to a contractor for that project, and that will begin the spring of this year. The first three items on that list are, they broke it out as the parking lot, the utilities, and construct terminal buildings. When it was bid out, those are all three in the bid, but they break them out separately. Another item that the board advised that we take a look at is a runway and taxiway pavement evaluation. We do have some problems with our concrete out at the airport, which requires us to sweep it pretty regularly because portions of the concrete are deteriorating to the point where it's kind of pebbleizing, which on a roadway might not be a problem, but with jet wash and prop wash at an airport, it's a serious problem. We've been patching it, but we need to get an engineer on board to do an evaluation and then in the future submit for funding to do the rehab on the runway and the taxiway. Other items we have on there in the upper column is taxiway A extension. That's the parallel taxiway that taxiway that runs parallel to the main runway, extending that all the way to the south end of the main runway. There again, that's one that we're hopeful getting federal funds. We don't have those now, but we can hope to have those in the future, get those allocated, but that's something that has to go to Congress. And other items are typical items that you would do is seal coating, rehab on the asphalt runway. Some of the asphalt is starting to deteriorate and needs some future tender loving care. We have a construction of a hangar that's in the way out years in 2028. And then we chose to move the terminal projects down to the end, what we call not funded, because those are all local funded projects. So we just kind of a procedural thing, move those out of the area of funded projects or fund participating projects down to the locally funded projects. At that point, that kind of concludes my report, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Councilman Ellis.
We, the previous council actually approved 1.3 million for the construction of the terminal. Is that right? Is that about the right number?
1.6, roughly it's like $1.7 million. I think 1.667. That's what the contract came in at, yes.
Okay.
Well, there's $2 million in the budget for the entire project. That includes the engineering. And then the contractor bid $1.667 million, I think was their bid for the project.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Councilman Muir?
With regards to a couple of pages in the material, the capital improvement program page has some handwritten values that have been inserted, the $5,000, the crossouts, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, that should say 50,000. I'm sorry. I'll add another zero to that.
Okay. And then I assume with those insertions, this document's going to actually be revised to reflect different subtotals as well.
We submit this to the state and then they make changes to our submittal. And then that is submitted to the federal FAA, basically.
But when you send it in with the strikeouts and additions that we're making, we don't correct the totals. We just send it in with.
No, we send it in just like this. That's what they want you to do.
Okay, but you're going to change the 5,000 to
Yes.
50,000?
Yeah, that should be 50,000. No, the total bottom numbers there, they adjust all that.
Okay, thank you. And then if you go over to the Division of Aeronautics Airport Officials list, there's been several strikeouts and replacements there, but we still have Mayor Getchman on here. Should that have not also been a change?
That will be changed. I thought I had changed that, but that will be changed.
Are there any other items as you look down that I don't recognize all the names, but do you recognize those all as being current?
Yes, they are, because, you know, I made those changes, but I forgot to switch the mayor.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions or comments for staff? Any comments from the public? Any comments from council? Do we need to make a motion to amend this then?
No.
No? Those changes? Okay.
I will handwrite
You'll
the
make it.
changes in as
Okay.
directed.
I would take a motion in regards to this item. Councilman Coons?
Make a motion to approve resolution 2021-016.
Councilman Jensen?
And I will second.
Cast your votes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Say it one more time.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
I take a motion to adjourn. Councilman Jensen?
I will make the motion to adjourn.
Councilman Legban?
And I will second that.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
Say it again.
Say it again.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ganem,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
We are adjourned.